It is my supreme joy and privilege to bring you a game featuring none other than 3Crow and also Green Eggs and Spam. We're going to be jumping into Derelict for this match, so I hope you guys like the desert with a little bit of grass. We've got 3Crow as I'm going to guess the Glacial Protoss in the bottom left. Ah, it's electric blue. And we've got Green Eggs and Spam as I'm going to guess the green... No, this can't be green because look at the Masons. They're like some kind of light green color, but I'm just going to say it's probably Vine Green. I'm going to say Vine Green Terran. Oh, Dark Spring Green. Annihilated. 0% chance in 0% ratio of guessing the colors. For those uninitiated, this is a game with over 100 player colors. Yeah, some of them are probably not going to be picked, like you're not going to get black in any tile set. And other ones, we do have the ability for you to select the colors that you want and even enable randomization so that you can sometimes get it this color or that color. Hamster, for example, has been using Celadon a lot lately. And I know Krankendow likes his... Hamster liked his Magma for a while. He switched to Celadon. I think Krankendow was blood and now he's maroon. So it's interesting to track people's tastes and such. I think Neblime, I don't think he selected Scarlet, but he got it recently. So anyway, there's a lot of different colors that you can get. So enjoy that fact as we get into this bio-fueled game by Green Eggs and Spam. So for those who don't know, Green Eggs and Spam has been playing the game for a good amount of time here. He debuted in a competitive setting in one of our underclass tournaments back in the month of March. So that would have been March Invitational A is when Green Eggs and Spam first debuted, and he was playing against Benno and did some very, very nice things with regards to the bio play. And it felt like maybe he wasn't able to cut it versus like Mech Terran or versus the Protoss Gateway Spam into Monuments of Sin that Benno was playing back in that day. So it's definitely been an interesting time to see bio be sort of... First, it was like dominant during Ascension number 7, and then it became a little bit more unwieldy as players started to get better with mech, and like it kind of fell out of favor. And then obviously like the Stim revamp that changed how Stim Pack worked kind of made a lot of people swear off the Stockade. You also think about like the Hurakan changes at the end of Ascension number 7, where obviously that was the catalyst for Neblime switching away from Terran. If he can't abuse Ahmed, that he can't play Terran at all. That was his words, not mine, clearly. Wink. And anyway, obviously a lot of changes have happened in the game, and a lot of different players are in now. But Green Eggs has remained stalwart and stolid. He is going for... It looks like he's actually banking his resources right now, and I'm not 100% sure why. Looks like he was waiting on the quarry resources, so he's going to queue up an additional Ahmed. Hurakan is informally called Ahmed, and maybe formally if you're really into the lore of Cosmonarchy and the lore of my projects in general. Someday I'll do a cast where most of the commentary is centered around Ahmed and how he's actually like one of the fundamental particles of the universe and stuff. But until we get to that point, all I can do is tease you about that sort of thing, tease that little feature, that little thing. So yeah, enjoy that. We've got Mass Hierophant coming out of 3Crow. I haven't really talked about 3Crow in this cast yet because, we've seen 3Crow a lot more often than Green Eggs. 3Crow also played a March Invitational A, but he was present in Invitational B, having secured his way in there through placements, and he was also somebody who attempted to get deep into the latest premier tournament that we had, Acropolis number 1, where he was able to qualify into battlements, courtesy of defeating General Anakin in the first Gauntlet qualifier. So he's got his own accomplishments under his belt, and he's now using Hierophants, you'd think, to good use, but he might actually... be playing around a little bit with some fire as his first man is destroyed. Now on Saturdays we normally call that Fraudarchy, and we definitely had a 1v1 focused Fraudarchy this time around comparatively. So it was pretty cool to see that. A lot of people were playing 1v1s, not so many people playing FFAs and stuff. We do have Green Eggs and Spam getting that good stim coverage here. He's sort of like pre-stimming to continue the injections and stuff. And at least there was that one case that he did that. But he doesn't have his healing out yet. He's actually going for the fast Covenant for a single Eidolon. So he's warded off these very nimble Hierophants with pure bio so far. And I don't think he lost a single unit, actually. So it's a little bit commendable there. Does have, of course, the quarry, but it looks like he's going to go ahead and throw down a treasury before continuing his Mason production. Wants to make sure he can get that expansion up. We do have some very fast static defense structures coming up on 3Crow's Natural as he takes his own expansion. So he's going to have the tempo lead there, but not in terms of workers. He's only now catching up to worker queue counts relative to what the Terran has. So I've seen a lot of Protoss players who are on the come up maybe complain when facing some experienced Terran players, which I mean, GreenEggs is experienced and blooded in terms of like he's played the game a lot, right? But he's not necessarily the most like high level player. I would say he doesn't get a lot of practice. He seems quite formidable. You know, he was underselling his skills before the Invitational, and then he came in and he really gave Benno a run for his money. It looked like he was being pretty competitive versus Scholar before internet troubles took Scholar away from us. Mr. Nicholas was no longer able to play the game in that day because his internet shut down or something. Such is life in Peru, I guess. But yeah, GreenEggs has, I would say, always impressed me, and so I was very eager to get a look at this game and see, like, okay, well, you keep saying to manage your expectations, but here you are, you know, looking pretty good, all things considered. So we are going to see him stick to the bio train. One of the things I do like about GreenEggs' gameplay is that he has, even if he doesn't execute on the idea, like something that Neblime has pointed out here so far lately is that players who are not Class 1 players, not upper class players, not players who are likely to set the world ablaze with their play, sometimes have a really cool set of ideas. They can sometimes have the right theory, even if they don't have the execution. And so high-level players, they can look at something that isn't so grand in terms of its capabilities, in terms of its capacity for like it's a mechanical skill from the player side or something like that. They can look at that and they can kind of dismiss the mechanical execution and just consider the theory, because they can imagine themselves as the pilots of the units and think, would that work though? Like, could this actually be the case? And that's what Neblime has done a lot of the times when talking with players like Jack Yelensky and Biddy B. And in fact, he actually gave a lot of credit to those underclass players for his victory in Acropolis #1. So I would like to tell Terran players to maybe look at GreenEggs for the same reason. Now, we are going to see an attack forward over here. First Hierophant dead, first Ecclesias dead, and first Hurakan dead in this particular engagement. Trying to focus down the healing makes a lot of sense, but it is going to cost him. In fact, GreenEggs just executes his own Maverick there at the end, friendly fire. And one of the things that I think GreenEggs did point out after this game is that he felt like his nerves were shot. So regardless of how this game ends, I would say that that's something that he probably, maybe that's something to work on better, that would help him more than worrying about mechanics or any particular drills, is like, can I keep my cool? Hit 'em Up has talked about his own difficulties with stuff like that in the past as well. So, you know, it's kind of similar in that respect. And we do have this patrolling Maverick up here in the upper portion of GreenEggs' base. A couple units left at the rally. Many Hurakans being made, kind of all at once, interestingly enough. Eidolon coming out of the Covenant-infused stockade, if you want to call that an infusion. A second Covenant coming. And, you know, if I'm GreenEggs, I'm feeling pretty strong about my army, but as soon as you walk in here with that Maverick that died here earlier, and you see Engram Matrix, you should probably hold off on the idea of pushing in with the major army, and you're going to try to establish a bit of a contain. Now, something I got to criticize 3Crow for is that he's got his embassy, but I don't see a witness anywhere. He's going to try to contest the Eidolons, and you know what happens in this situation is you'll just end up getting your units sniped instead. So a little bit of a too far forward, in my opinion. Definitely going to cost him some action there. We'll drac it into Ecclesias. He does kill or 3 Ecclesias, actually. He kills a single Eidolon. And you know what? That might slow down the push, since obviously the Engram and the Matrix and stuff are going to be under siege pretty soon. But you don't have that many units over here. Now, unfortunately, GreenEggs pulls his units away from, you know, pulls his attention away, I should say, and doesn't pull his units away. So even though he put some pretty good damage out of the Engram, and you can kind of see what's going on here, he's having a tough time avoiding running directly into 3Crow's forces. So 3Crow is doing a pretty good job of kind of baiting him forward here. Now, even with that said, it does feel to me like these Engrams will not be able to hold. In fact, I think GreenEggs made a huge error there in pulling back. If he just focused down this top Engram suddenly, I think 3Crow's in a lot of trouble. You can go after the pylons easier. He's kind of just being sort of drawn back and forth. I would say that GreenEggs is in a very commanding position if he just either keeps his cool and commits to not attacking. I don't know what happened to that Dracodon, but it decided to go a different route. And if he just decides to not attack, or he decides to attack, either one of those is a choice that is liable to get him further ahead in the game. But the only bad choice is kind of the one he's making, which is just kind of being jockeyed back and forth, right? So he's going to commit to killing this Dracodon. No issue there. 3Crow probably didn't even realize it was out there. He does have an Acantor out. He's got double Ardent, so he's pumping out the Acantors, trying to deal with this Bioforce. Definitely a big deal. And remember, one of the things I was about to criticize 3Crow for is he's got this embassy out, but he doesn't have a witness. So how is he going to be stopping the Eidolons? That would be the first thing that I would be doing in this situation, is not building more static defense, which is just going to cost me, and not just cost me resources, but also map tempo, but also consider, like, well, if I can just attack them without having to get close to them, then there is not really any counterplay. Finally, this forward engram is going to be sniped down. I'd go after the Matrix next. It does look like 3-Crow will capitulate that. There are enough Eidolons over here to do some pretty good damage there. And you do have to watch out about the production structures and the other such structures over here. It looks like GreenEggs falling back a little bit further, having felt a little bit confident in his situation here. Has a ministry on location. Not on location, actually, but preparing to lift off. It's also just producing Masons immediately, which is kind of funny. And he's pulling most of his forces back, which is kind of interesting here. He does have this guy on patrol between 6 o'clock and the third base for 3-Crow, at least I would say the likely third base location. Shout out to the pickup partner. They move things from Biddy A to Biddy B. If you're in the New England area, I highly recommend checking them out. The Eastern Seaboard is awash with opportunities for moving companies to sponsor Cosmonarchy. and you know what? The pickup partner is the first one to do it. So you want to get in on this action, send me a message. Let me know. We will shout you out in the middle of videos and streams and everything. All right, so we do have a lot of firepower coming out of GreenEggs, but it is, of course, kind of diffuse among all of the different units here. Very large army relative to what we normally see at this time in the game for Terran, because usually they're consolidated into mech. Now, Tier 2 is done, so GreenEggs will be thinking about adding maybe starports to this, maybe captaincies to this. He's actually going to add another stockade. I would imagine that these Masons are moving out here to, yep, indeed, build the captaincies. So something that, I was mentioning at the beginning of this cast, or towards the beginning, is that GreenEggs is the type of player to stick with the idea of bio. He just wants to champion bio. He wants to be the prisoner's champion. And that's what he's doing out of the stockade. Now, at the same time, you know, these captaincies come out and you're going to start to see apostles. You're going to start to see, maybe autocrats in the later stages of the game. These are all units that are pretty damn strong. And at the end of the day, it would be pretty cool to see. I would just like to see more people use them so I can get a better read on where they're at. And GreenEggs is exactly the type of player to think about, these apostle transitions. And I assume that's going to be the first couple of units out of these captaincies. So he's going to go ahead and add an anvil. Interesting. Yeah, finally putting the Eidolons to use in that particular fashion. Great at, busting this position. You imagine putting an Eidolon up here and casting a nuke over here once you get some sort of way to scout this forward, even if you just march in with a Maverick or something to get the vision for a moment. Definitely something you could do. And, these are kinds of situations where, in my opinion, that's like exactly what you would be looking for when it comes to this sort of usage. Now, you probably want to add a couple extra treasuries for these sorts of things. I would love to imagine that eventually people will realize that sometimes it's good to put down a couple extra treasuries just for these sorts of add-ons, because, yeah, sure, you can put down them at bases, but if somebody comes in here and swoops in and destroys the anvil while it's loaded and it annihilates your worker line, that is a pretty big cost, right? So just something to think about. One thing that I think is really neat is that the Treasury stands a much greater chance of dying to the nuclear explosion than the Ministry does. So if you have an anvil and it is attached to a Treasury, it's probably going to kill that Treasury. I say probably because technically there's a possibility of repairing it, I believe, before it dies, but it's pretty slim. And when you're factoring in the idea of like building ministries instead, that's just another reason to think about the ministry, right? So I don't know, it's pretty cool. We're seeing Sentinels be added to the third base. I think GreenEggs has been very paranoid right now. He actually, this is entering into a kind of like a low action situation. By the way, this whole time, 3-Crow has been amassing a flotilla of Acantors, and we're talking about 9 envoys, and he's got 2 more lying around. So he's going to add in some more action there. He did spot that with a Maverick, GreenEggs, so I would have to hazard a guess that he's probably got something there. Nice set of Mavericks all over the place to watch for bases. Now, this one over here is a very exposed base. It's on the low ground. You can attack into it from multiple angles, so I really don't think that that's going to end up going places. You can see here that 3-Crow, he's got a lot of minerals in the bank, is actually going to get, yep, that base is found, and of course up here the scribe that made it is going to be put down. So looking pretty nice here for GreenEggs. Again, he's done a pretty good job of sort of positioning a bunch of units. It's also making it pretty difficult for this Incision strike force that is going on here to make anything happen with regards to the Acantors. He's got Mavericks all over the place just watching for stuff. You know, you put Mavericks over here to make sure that you can't end up losing to the... what would you say? Like you can't end up losing to the Neblime strat of just having a absolute boatload of artisans harvesting Vespian gas. So we did hear the Apostle bell toll. We saw a Madcap be revived. Great opportunity there. The Servitor's not able to do too much there. And now we've got these Dracodons kind of caught in the middle of I'm trying to keep an eye out for the fleet of envoys, but they aren't actually engaging right now. So here it looks like there will be an engagement. The Shaman deployed kind of a ways off from affecting the front line, and the Cantors are already finding some success, but the Apostles are keeping the back line very nicely stacked. So here come the attempt with the Cantor hordes. They're going to go ahead and drop directly into enemy territory. I don't know about that. I feel like that's not a pretty good... Yeah, that's definitely not a good idea when you're factoring in the whole Apostle shenanigans. So the Cantor has actually been stolen. The envoys are out as well in some force over here. And that is a very scary situation here. Green Eggs, I mean, he's starting to get really heavily hemorrhaged from the bottom side, but that was a very successful counter push. You know, the Apostles being kind of anti-drop, you know, anti-death drop insurance, so to speak. But the Apostles are dying. So I think we're kind of down to, indeed, yeah, we don't really have anything else. I mean, there's the 3 envoys and 1 Cantor that are hanging out over here. But that's about it. We got more reinforcements streaming in for Green Eggs. Remember that base was eventually shut down at some point by the 1 Maverick, apparently. Presumably canceled. I don't see any Rebel there. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky. Remember that the nuke capacity here, the Morningstar, is done. So it's definitely something that to think about here. And in fact, it might not even be necessary. The Architects are doing a lot of damage, but the Eidolons are countering that. Remember, there's still no witnesses. There are no witnesses here. And there's the missile launch as well, directly in front of that engram. The Eidolons trying their best to just focus down these units. The Ahmeds holding them at an arm's length long enough for this Eidolon to get the nuke off. And there it is. The Morningstar is going to go ahead and land, and it will eviscerate the power for this bottom engram, the engram and pylon over there, the Dracodon, etc. Crazy stuff. Now, there is an Architect hiding in there that I think 3Crow probably can't see, but it will narrowly live, I think. I think it will narrow. No, it passed back into the field, so it's definitely dead now. Very unfortunate. I think it would have lived just fine. Now, okay, the Mason's going to transfer to the 4th base here. Green Eggs actually very ahead in worker count. And remember, at this point, like building more workers, sure, you want to do it anyway for habit, but it's not the ideal situation. We actually have a 2nd embassy over here. He's totally capped on what he can make as far as like worker efficiency goes. Now, he's got all of these wounded envoys here in the main, but what is 3Crow going to be doing in this situation? It feels like his passivity has definitely held him back in this game. He's adding more static defense. That hasn't really helped that much. You might look at it and say, oh, that's the reason why he's still alive from this position. Yes, technically, but you have to also realize that one of the reasons why he's in this position to begin with, to the point where the static defense is the only thing he's holding out on, is that he built the static defense to begin with, instead of being a little bit more aggressive. And now it feels like the tide is going to collapse upon him. We've got more Hurricanes, we've got plenty of Eidolons and Madcaps, so it feels like even the Architects are not going to be able to do too much here. I love the Huracan combat drop with the Envoy, only unloading 3 of them, the other 7 just kind of watching on from the skies. I'm sure eventually they'll be unloaded. Eventually, they would love to be unloaded on top of those Architects. It was almost a Nebline move, but let's see. Let's find out. Nope. Away it goes. Oh, it was right-clicked on by the army, so away it goes. Now, the Apostles are kind of keeping things alive over here. It's proving very difficult for 3Crow to get rid of this guy, and you know we've got Madcaps and Hurricans near the mineral line of the natural, so that's feeling pretty bad. Servitor died over here to enchant the, or maybe it was a Vassal. I see a lot of Vassals being queued up here. This Architect has 36 health. It might be able to live, though. Man, if only our spammer here could, move these Apostles a bit further forward to have reclaimed things like the Architects. Another missile launch does get painted. I'm not quite sure where. Okay, it's over there. That's going to be the, I think, the end of it all, because there's almost no hope for 3Crow to not just come back from the situation in general, but that's a capstone moment where you're like, God damn, dude. This guy double nuked me. This guy got me with 2 separate Morningstars. I can't believe it. Well, things are looking pretty damn dire. All the workers are plummeting down. Now, this Nexus is still alive somehow, but 3Crow will GG. Even he cannot deny that he has been bested. Bloodbath indeed. The Daedalus was on the way and everything towards the end of that game. And Green Eggs must be feeling like, oh, damn, 3Crow made it to Battlements. I just beat a Battlements player. Maybe I could make it to Battlements. Yeah, maybe you could, sir. Maybe you could. Thank you guys for joining me for this cast. It was an enjoyable one. As always, the streak is maintained, even if it's only narrowly. And we'll see you guys tomorrow for more Cosmonarchy action. GG's.